This is a traditionally planted woodland. And as you can see, it's beautiful, but it's about 6 years old and still has another 50 to 90 years to go before it's a fully mature Irish woodland. But what if I was to tell you that there's a way of planting trees that can see them grow up to 10 times faster? Well, it turns out that there is. It's called the Miyawaki Method, and it's getting more and more popular all over the world. So I've been investigating it for this video. In the plant world, everything is about the competition for light. That's what drives the growth of a woodland. And as you can see, in a traditionally planted woodland like this, there's no competition for light at this early stage. Well, this woodland is about 6 years old, but this conifer, this Scots pine, which is our only native conifer, and this oak tree in front of me, for example, have such a long way to go before they get tall enough to start blocking out the light down to the ground, kill back this grass, and that will give the opportunity for your lichens, your moss, your fungi, your shrubs, your creepers and climbers to start coming up through and create the ecosystem that we know as a woodland. And that's what the Miyawaki Method focuses on. It's creating that competition much, much earlier by planting the trees much closer together to drive that competition of growth forward. But it's also planting in all those secondary layers in a woodland, like the shrubs and the creepers and the fungi and moss and things, into the earth right from the get-go. So you're planting the whole ecosystem, not just the trees that will eventually create the ecosystem in many, many years. And that's what's so cool about it. And of course, I have been busy making my own one with the help of my dogs, and I'll talk to you a bit about this process at the end of the video. I'd like to put a slight caveat on this because I've come to an understanding, having done lots of research for this video, in my own opinion, that the Miyawaki Method is perhaps best suited to certain circumstances, like urban environments and biodiversity projects like my own, and I'll explain that in more detail and give you some food for thought at the end of this video. But right now, let me explain a bit more about what the Miyawaki Method is all about. Akira Miyawaki was a Japanese botanist who had a keen interest in phytosociological community units, or as he called them, companion species. This is basically looking holistically at a forest and understanding how all the layers and individual plants work together to form one interrelated ecosystem. Looking at a forest, he observes that it consists of multiple layers. Starting at the top, you have the canopy layer, which is comprised of the most mature trees and the tallest species. Under that, you have the understory layer, which is comprised of younger trees and smaller species. Under that then, you have your shrub layer, which obviously is where you're going to find your shrubs. And finally, you have the forest floor layer, and that's where you find soft stem plants like ferns and flowers. And throughout the whole forest, of course, you have dead wood, dead standing wood, lichen, moss, mushrooms, and everything in between. So how did he advise his new planting method? Well, he based it on PNV, or potential natural vegetation, which is basically plants' innate ability to grow within the constraints of a certain location, such as soil type and climate, without human intervention. So what plants would naturally occur if humans had no influence on that location? And I note the potential natural vegetation, the natural bit meaning native plants. So plants native to that local specific site. These locally collected and grown trees would then be planted at a density of 3 to 5 trees per square meter, as opposed to the traditional method of 1 tree to every 1 to 2 square meters. And that is a key differentiator between the Miyawaki and the traditional method of planting, is the Miyawaki's high density. And the result is a mini forest that can grow up to 10 times faster, is 30% denser, importantly for me, is 100 times more biodiverse, and is 100% native. To get a better understanding of what Miyawaki was talking about, I thought I'd come and check out this nearby mature woodland to get an Irish perspective on what a phytosociological community or a woodland is, and I could see everything that he was talking about. Let me show you. Exploring a beautiful woodland like this gave me the motivation to get planting, but first I wanted to talk to a couple of people who have experience planting in Miyawaki forest already, and one of those was Brian O'Toole from Wildacres. I've already talked to Brian and Gilly in Wildacres before. If you haven't seen that video, go and check it out. I'll put a link up here in the corner for you. But Brian has planted a Miyawaki forest, a small Miyawaki forest on his land a year ago. So I thought I'd go and check out his experience and see what I could learn from that. Wow, so Brian, this is your Miyawaki forest, your mini forest. I know obviously at this time of year it's not the best time to be filming this because it doesn't have all its green foliage, but at the same time this is a great time for planting one, which is what I'm doing now. So yeah. So it's really cool to see one a few years on. And I've got lots of questions because I'm seeing a great variety of species in here, which is really, really cool. But first of all, how old is this actually?
So we planted this last winter. Yeah.
Only last winter?
Yeah, only last winter.
This is a year old?
Yeah, so it's a year old, effectively. Yeah. One growing season. This is the end of the first growing season. So yeah.
Wow, that is fantastic because there's a lot going on in here already. Talk to me a little bit about what species you have in here. I'm seeing hazel and oak and hawthorn.
In relation to the variety species, we've got, as you rightly said, we've got alder. We've got alder, of course, yeah. We've got oak. We have willow. We have hawthorn, we have, what else have we got? We've got some spindle, Euonymus europaeus, we've got some alder buckthorn, which loves the wet.
Very good.
We have put in also some climbers, the likes of native, all native obviously, that's a huge thing, native trees, native plants. We also have some rose, canina dog rose. We've got we also put in some climbers, the likes of honeysuckle we have here.
Fantastic, okay.
Yeah, and we put in, just at the herbaceous layer, we put in some wild garlic. So just to create all of those different strata and different layers.
Every layer and level of a forest is in here, which is great. And I can see that you've also put down some leaf litter, which is perfect at this time of year to create mulch and bring some health into the soil.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you mentioned, the likes of the willow is a big drinker. So this soil, I think, is quite damp. It feels quite damp.
This is this Miyawaki, it's a 6 meter diameter forest. Now they can be any size. I mean, I think the smallest you can make them to a car parking space size, effectively, or larger if you want.
Which I think is actually one of the best things about it is you could do this in an urban environment, in a park, in a smaller garden, for example, quite easily, and have the same results.
Absolutely, you can recreate it. Yeah, the whole concept is just wonderful to bring woodland into urban settings effectively. So, I mean, obviously here we've 7 acres of native woodland. So it's just, a lot of people will come to us, say, from urban settings. So it's to show them what they can do in their own urban setting, or park setting, or whatever, office land setting. So, this is a wet field. So the species we have in here can cope with that wet environment. We've a variety of species. They'll all grow and compete with each other, which is the whole concept of the Miyawaki method. And also, as trees do, I mean, we've all heard of the wood wide web, where trees has been found to actually communicate and collaborate with each other. So, and that will also happen in time as they develop.
And I can see some things helping that out. I can see that you've already got some fungi coming up from the ground, which is a great indicator of a healthy root system and a network going on underneath. Did you do much to the soil to prepare?
We did actually, yeah. So myself and Gilly put some hard work, hard labour, hard graft into this, in that we dug all of the turf, the grass turf, turned it over. So grass facing down, soil facing up, bare soil facing up. And that's when you put the bare roots in, the whips, the trees, the small trees, it gives them a chance, a head start. Because otherwise in the first season they'd be swamped with grass. Which, then would inhibit their growth or even kill them. So so there's a bit of fungi, and there was an even bigger one there a minute ago, but unfortunately I managed to stand on it. So
look, that's the way it goes. I mean, Miyawaki forests are in general really tightly compacted. What's the ratio actually of planting?
Yeah, so it's recommended about 3 to 5 per metre. So it's you're ramming them in, you're tightly packing them in. So so you get this dense woodland, and it's been proven that when you do that, and the whole concept of it is that in them competing with each other, they actually grow quicker.
Yes.
So they'll all strive for light. They're all racing to get up there to photosynthesize up for light, to get to the light. So it's really an accelerated growth.
One of the slight downsides to the Miyawaki method is that they tend to be quite inaccessible for people to enjoy and observe. But you have a lovely little path in here which allows you to help maintain it, but also I imagine when it's going to be more mature and enclosed, it's going to be a great place to come in here and soak it all up and see what's going on in here.
Yeah.
And it would feel quite enclosed, like you're in a full woodland, even though it's 6 meters squared. So, so this is something that I'm taking on board for sure. Is this access path in here? But
I mean, access is huge. I mean, just for people. You know, you said it yourself, because obviously we're densely planting them, so you want to, I mean, it should be for people also, you know, so people can enjoy it.
Absolutely,
come in, sit down, breathe in those phytoncides, the trees release them. Yeah, and just de-stress, come in, sit down and relax and take it all in. And
de-stressing is a big one. I mean, you could plant this in a normal sized garden at home, and once it's all grown up, you could come in here, you could have a nice little bench in here and you'd feel like you're in the woods and the countryside, but you're only in your back garden, which is super cool. And I'd imagine there'd be, you know, all sorts of birds and life around you as well. So that's what's so special, I think, about the Miyawaki method is the richness that it gives people and animals, and also how much quicker it is to get to that point.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful concept, absolutely. And as I said, it just brings that concept to people that otherwise, you know, haven't got access to a woodland as such. You know, you might be living in the middle of suburban Dublin or suburban wherever, and just, you know, you can have your Miyawaki forest or nearby, or even in your back garden. I know people that plant them in back gardens and front gardens, and all of a sudden you got your own mini woodlands.
Yeah, yeah, it's fantastic. No, it really is, and I really appreciate you showing me around year one. So I better get to it and plant my one.
No problem.
Talking to Brian got me thinking that biodiversity isn't the only thing that can benefit from the Miyawaki method. Because of its scale, people can really benefit from it as well, especially in urban areas. So I reached out to Catherine Cleary from the brilliant social enterprise Pocket Forest to learn a little bit more about how people can benefit from the Miyawaki method. So tell me a bit more about this amazing Miyawaki method Pocket Forest, which by the way is a fantastic name. How long ago did you plant it? What have we got in here? And how's it doing?
We planted it in February 2021, right in the teeth of lockdown. The girls who were at school here were not at school here because of lockdown, so it was my co-founder Ash Conrad-Jones and myself and some friends as well who got involved in planting it. And it's about 100 square metres of planting space, so that means we planted 300 native trees and shrubs into that space.
So remind me again the ratio of trees that you need in the Miyawaki method, like how many trees you need per square metre?
It's about between 3 and 5. We went with 3 just because, you know, it was our first forest and 300 trees seemed like an awful lot to plant.
Exciting.
So we plant 3 per square metre, trees and shrubs, not just trees.
But it's really thriving for its age. Remind me, what species do we have in here? Everything native?
Everything is native, everything is sourced in Ireland. So we have both birches, downy and silver. We've got an alder, just looking at one there in front. We've got some willow, some guelder rose. We've got a couple of small oaks, one on either side, some Scots pines. Again, one top and bottom. We have crabapple, we've got cherry, we have an elder here, which is really going for treedom, even though it's a shrub species. We've got a spindle over there full of its pink berries this time of the year. It's just, and the roans, obviously, their colour at this time of the year is
it's fantastic, isn't it?
It's just spectacular,
Lovely ambers and golds.
Beautiful.
And
hawthorns, obviously.
And the hawthorns there, and there's one behind you here.
And there's a blackthorn over there being very well behaved.
Yes, I see that. So tell me a little bit about, because I noticed you didn't say there's a huge amount of species like oak, which is big on my list. Is that because, you know, oaks, obviously it's going to be slower growing and it's going to be eventually the bigger kind of canopy tree, so you want to space them out, or is it that kind of logic?
It was a little bit based on that, the longevity of the oak and the size of the oak. So, you know, while a lot of these are pioneer species and they will be growing up as sister trees to an oak or a Scots pine, you know, an oak or a Scots pine is much longer lived, a much larger tree. So, you know, if you got a time machine and came back here, you might find that there is a very well-established oak or two oaks and those minor species still seeding themselves underneath. You know, it's a constantly regenerating system.
And that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
And so I can hear around us, apart from the starlings, we've got some kind of vehicle activity over here. Obviously, we're on school grounds, so we've got some kids playing over there in the background. This is an urban environment, and I'd love if you could explain to us a bit about what you see the benefits of the Miyawaki method and pocket forests like this being when it comes to urban environments and areas where people might not necessarily be able to access nature very easily.
Yeah, there are huge benefits. I mean, there are really two of the stronger benefits of this method, I think, are the social and the environmental benefits. You know, the idea of recreating habitat for those birds, for the soil life, for mammals. We have a fox living in here. You can see some evidence of predation on the gold.
I can see some feathers over there, yeah.
So, you know, there's habitat creation here for animals, but there's also, this is a well-being space, I think, for the children who go to school here. Yeah. They can sit here either in a formal setting as a classroom, but they can also sit here if they just want a bit of time away from the melee of being in secondary school in an inner city school, where many of them live in housing that does not have any garden, any access to gardens, any access to growing things.
Yeah.
So the exciting thing is being able to work with people like that to create these spaces, and then that they can enjoy them, you know, and this is one of the best examples, I think, of that.
It is, it's beautiful, and I love you do feel totally enclosed in here, and I love that you have these stumps for everybody to sit on and enjoy, which I'm sure they do a lot through the year. I guess my attention was drawn to the Miyawaki method because of the benefits for biodiversity, which is my goal on my project with my land. But it's so cool to hear and to see how much it can benefit people as well, because woodlands and outdoor environments like this can benefit our mental health so much. So, Catherine, tell us a little bit more about pocket forests and what your projects are, what your goals are with it, and where it all began.
Well, it all began in a neighbourhood where we don't have a lot of green space. So the feeling was with my co-founder Ash Conrad-Jones, who came across the idea of the tiny forest model, which was coming into Europe in 2015. So nearly a decade ago, the first tiny forest was planted in the Netherlands. And it seemed perfect for the part of Dublin where we live, because green spaces are so hard to come by. It makes very little sense to just use one level of them. So just to have grass is a waste of everything above grass level. You know, like the developers who are going high-rise, our green spaces can go high-rise with this model in really small footprints, and multiple layers of habitat, perches for birds, and again, just that feeling of restoring something that would have blanketed the island, you know, many...
You're being really ingenious, I understand, from in terms of where you can put pocket forests. I think I heard that you have even planted into a skip in an area that you know otherwise wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah, and it gives a good example to people with small gardens of, you know, you can have trees in a small footprint. They won't get to full size. You will be managing to keep them a little bit smaller. But yeah, our skip forest in the digital hub gives people a real example, and there's a seat there so people can sit and have a look.
That's wonderful. It's such a good idea. Pocket Forest is a social enterprise, isn't that right? So people are able to donate. Is that on your website?
Yeah, people can buy a tree pack on our website, so they can plant their own pocket forest in their garden.
Very
We've got
cool.
some tree packs available this year for the first time. If a company wants to sponsor a forest, either in their grounds or in a local community or school, they can get in touch with us through the website. So we're always looking for funding to do these projects. We're very excited by their potential, and hopefully people can support us.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks so much, Catherine.
Thank you.
Armed with all this information, I then set about making my own Miyawaki forest. The first thing I did was trim all the grass away from the site using a powerful electric trimmer. This gave me a sense of the size of the site, which my dogs will now model for you, but it's about 5 meters in diameter. Next came the long job of raking away all the grass cuttings. I then marked out the site with some branches that I cut from a nearby Leylandia tree. This helped to mark out the boundaries of the site as I worked, but also to create some small microhabitats around the boundaries of the woodland, which I can leave there into the future. Finally came the biggest job, turning the sod, one of the most important things to slow down the return of the grass, which is inevitable while the trees are small. This was a job that one of my dogs found very exciting, while the other one, well, didn't. Next, I added as much topsoil as I possibly could. and I mix that in with lots of leaf litter from my grounds and also from a nearby woodland to encourage as much natural microbiome as I could in the area. I also added straw and wood chip to create some aeration through the soil because it's quite a dense clay. And finally then I got to planting, which I'm still in the process of right now, but it's hard to tell because it's winter, but I've actually got over 100 trees in here so far, and most of them are trees that I have grown over the last couple of years from seed in pots, and that is a really important element of the Miyawaki method. The reason being biosecurity. We want to make sure that the trees have great resilience to diseases like ash dieback, which is hitting Ireland quite hard, and also fire blight, which is sadly starting to hit our hawthorn. And when you plant trees that have been grown from mature trees in the local area, from seed, they're more likely to have that resilience already. And so that makes up a good proportion of what I have here in my little Miyawaki forest. As I mentioned at the start of this video, I have some personal food for thought on the Miyawaki method, and it's basically that I think it's best suited to smaller plantations like this, with the specific purposes of biodiversity and for the benefits of people, whether it be through education or for mental well-being or access to nature. But I don't think it's all that appropriate for large-scale afforestation projects, for the simple reason that when these trees get to a more mature size and they really start to fight for space, there's likely going to be a higher mortality rate. And we should really be planting for longevity, for the future, rather than for the present. But it is absolutely fantastic for projects like mine because it's going to become a richer, more food-filled habitat for biodiversity much quicker. And like I said, for urban environments and for people's benefits as well, it's absolutely fantastic. So that's my food for thought. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Do feel free to subscribe and tell your friends about the Real Wildlife, and I'll see you on the next one.